Hi everyone, welcome to the Solar Racking Market Series. My name is Erez Dolev and I am the Managing Director at RENVU. Today we are going to be hearing from Eugene Kinsburg, Sales Manager at KB Racking. Before we dive in and while we are waiting for more people to join, I'll give a little background on RENVU and some of the products and services we offer. So RENVU was established in 2012 and we are located in California. We have 3 fulfillment centers in New Jersey, Texas, and California. I'll go over several products that we want to spotlight. So the first one we wanted to mention is the Solus hybrid inverter that goes together with a BYD battery bank. The Solus inverters are coming in 5 kilowatt, 7.6, 10 kilowatt hybrid. And the battery banks that you see here are, each section is 2.5 kilowatt hour and can be built up to 10 kilowatt hour, and they're matching together. It's a high voltage battery solution. For low voltage battery solution, the most popular one would be the SolarArc inverter, all-in-one, that can be worked with multiple low voltage batteries that we are offering, from Simplify to Fortress Power and Humless. They all have any size between 2.5, 5 kilowatt to multiple hundreds of kilowatt hour battery banks. For panels, we carry currently the Hyundai 390 and 395 for commercial. This is due to the supply chain constraints. If you want pricing, we will share our commercial price list, which is also available on our website. One of the RENVU team, if you can share the link to the commercial price list over chat, that will be good. Another racking solution would be the Power Field. These are ballasted ground mount. It's buckets that you can just fill in with sand or gravel and position on the ground and attach modules to them. Simple installation without any drilling or any analysis of the ground. Next product would be the NLX EV charger. RENVU is one of the only suppliers that carry the 48 amp charger for NLX, and it's very popular to go with the Blinky Residential carport. The Blinky Residential carport is a simple installation of up to 24 60 cell modules. The most popular one is for 2 cars, which spans 18 feet and can withstand 35 pound per square foot of snow, and can be upgraded to 65 in some locations, and can withstand also 175 miles per hour wind load. Those carports are manufactured in Texas, has 25-year warranty, doesn't require any heavy tools. The only need for site preparation would be to dig 2 feet deep piers and fill them with concrete. After that, it's a very simple installation. It has several accessories like safety lights that you're simply sticking to the columns. It has solar panel on it, so you don't need to run wires. The surface of the carport is sealed with the EPDM gasket that we supply with it, and there is also a decorative mesh that hides all the wiring and the modules and racking, and of course the EV charger that I mentioned before. If you're interested to join the Blinky Authorized Installer program, there is a process for this. there is an application form that you can ask for. After the webinar, we will be happy to send you the application form. After that's approved by Blinky, you're installing 3 carports, signing a special price agreement, and you're becoming an authorized installer with many perks like discounts and rebates and leads, usually homeowners that are asking for a quote or installation. One tool that we have on our front page is called Solar Kit Guide. It's an online design and quote tool. You'll go through a process. You're selecting if you want grid tie, off grid, what equipment you want, full system, what type of inverter you would like to use, what module you will want to use. If you don't find the module that we have here, you can select your own. What type of roof you're using, tilted roof, carport, ground, pole mount, or flat roof. This webinar is for ballasted system, so we're showing here how to design it with KB racking. You're saying how many arrays you have, and then how many rows for each array, and how many panels per row. After you're doing that, you can see on the left side, you can select different brands. On the left side, you will get updated the system summary, and if you're logged in, you will also see your costs showing up. You can select energy storage inverter or regular inverters, and rapid shutdown if needed, optimizers if you want to add to your system. And in this case, this is a fairly large project that I selected a energy storage inverter, so that requires me to select how many inverters I would like. So I would select 3 10 kilowatt inverters, just because the size of the system is 35 kilowatt. So 3 inverters would be sufficient. And also you can connect it as a 3-phase. Adding here carports at the end, some accessories, a balance of system, a permitting package. And then at the end, you see all the bill of material, and you can click on that button to send the proposal to your email. And that proposal can be turned into a sales order or adjusted with our sales engineers. Go back to, okay, so just some logistics. We have recordings of all previous webinars on our RENVU YouTube channel. You can go there and check out those. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can ask them through the Q&A. Please don't use the chat because it's harder for us to manage. You can chat between you or other participants, but questions for Eugene should go through the Q&A, and we will filter through them. Or if you have questions afterwards, you can send them to info@renvu.com, and one of our sales engineers will get back to you. All right, so it looks like we're about to get started here. I'm going to head it over to Eugene. I'll stop sharing my screen, and Eugene, you will be able to do that. You're muted.
Hello, everyone. And let's start off the presentation and going over slightly about KB racking. So KB racking, we provide a balance of racking systems for commercial projects. We do flat roof and other types of roof types, but through RENVU, we mostly sell our EkonoRack system. So about us, we've been in the solar experience about 12 years now, mostly selling in North America. We had some operations in Mexico, but right now all our operations are based out of Toronto. We do our manufacturing in Toronto. We do have another remote office in Los Angeles.
Eugene, are you, just a question, are you sharing your screen? Because we don't see a presentation. I don't know if it's...
I believe that was. My apologies to everyone. There we go. Does everybody see that now?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, my apologies. It's almost like I'm new to this. All right, so let me kind of start it from the top. So KB racking has been in existence for about 12 years now. We started mostly in Ontario during the big solar boom. We expanded our presence all over the United States. We have a great deal of projects within Los Angeles, California, Texas, Arizona, New Jersey, all across Canada, from BC to Newfoundland. We've experienced working in many different locations with many different experiences, whether it's a seismic activity or mass amounts of snow loads. We have offices, our main office is in Toronto, where we do our manufacturing, and we have a remote office in Los Angeles. We're mostly focused on innovative solutions for ballasted and anchored rooftop mounting systems for commercial and some residential applications. As of now, we have achieved over 200 megawatts of systems installed. We're exponentially growing into much more sales as we move on. Now, our flagship product that we sell through RENVU is our EkonoRack 2.0 system. So, responsible for about 80% of our sales. It's an innovative design composed of only one major component, which is the support. And then the supplementary components would be the clamps and the windshield. Now, one balustrade does work for multiple supports, as you can see from the design. Is pretty much the central piece. It shares the panels between the left and right and the north-south. We do consider this as a very simple design and pre-attached components to save time installation and reduce cost. We have done testing with UL 2703 for certifications for wind tunnel testing and strength data. Now, to go over the main system components, it does consist of pretty much the main support that comes with a pre-attached recycled rubber mat. And we do have pre-approval from multiple different roofing companies, saving the need for buying slip sheets and cutting them on site. So it does come pre-attached with that, as well as it has pre-attached M8 serrated nuts. That's to make installation of the windshield much easier. So in total, like, there is three main components we consider for the system, which would be the support, the clamps, and the windshield itself. And we provide the full balance of components with the system as it goes through. Now, as I've gone over the roof protection mats that are pre-attached, they're environmentally friendly, being recycled rubber. They're UV resistant and a high coefficient of friction. Specifically for places like Los Angeles, where they make you do a peer review studies to get your friction coefficients. This is for accounting for different roof types and affects some of the loading calculations based on type of roof type between TPO, EPDM. Each roof type has its own different friction coefficient. So we're able to put that into the design and then lower the amount of ballast that's needed for smaller arrays when there's a lot of drag calculations. And because it has been highly tested, and we've sent it over to different roofing companies to kind of evaluate to make sure that they're fine with just the roof protection mats being used and not additional slip sheets. It does save a lot of time and money during the installation. And we've kind of reached out to Firestone, Carlisle, JF, JKO, and John Mansville. This is some of the major roofing manufacturers within the US, and it allows us the ability to build without using the roof protection mats other than the ones that we provide pre-attached. As you can see, like, we've worked on many different projects. whether it's high-rise buildings with very many obstructions to very large warehouses. We've done from 4 megawatts down to a couple 100 kilowatts and even smaller projects. So we do have a range of ability to do pretty much from the smallest to the largest type of project with our system. We can go over briefly for a quick installation video. I will leave the link. Actually, my apologies for that. Let me skip. All right, so that was a brief installation video. Just kind of want to give a quick understanding of how the system goes together. I do have to claim that the video is a little bit older. As you saw, the way the windshield was attached with self-tapping screws, we have updated that, as I showed it with the M8 serrated nuts. There's no longer any need to actually drill anything on site. It's just a nut and bolt solution now. So as part of the installation tools, we would be providing a layout with an engineering report and the ballasting requirements. Spacing diagrams and installation manuals are available upon request. This will help with layout design. We'll just kind of go over some of the design guidelines. So as far as like array size limits, as we said, the system is UL 2703 certified for grounding, so it does only need to be grounded once per array. But there is constraints of how big an array can be. There's code constraints, and then there's system constraints for thermal expansion. So typically, in the north-south direction, we can only place about 25 panels going in the north-south. East-west, it's about 15 panels, depending on the climate and location. It can be stretched out to 16 or 17, depending on the heat in the area and the temperature change. But we usually say that the 15 panels east-west would be a safe estimate on how many panels you can place in the east-west direction until you need to have a thermal break. So pretty much a short space between the arrays, so that way the system can deal with the thermal expansion that happens over the day and night. And in each break, we need at least 4 inches between the systems. So it would be the supports sitting fairly close to each other just to create another break within the array. For array shape, we need to avoid single columns. This is mostly for loading calculations. We technically avoid very small arrays as much as possible. This will allow the system to share the weight across the full system rather than creating very heavy spots. So as you can see, for our system, we recommend that only one peninsula or an island area be done. So we typically would avoid doing 2 panels and a protrusion or expansion. So this is because even a single panel being outside itself, not sharing the weight with the rest of the system, will require additional ballasting. So additional panels that would be placed aside of it would create much heavier system requirements. And at times it would be too heavy even for the system to be handled, or too heavy for the roof to be able to take that much of a point load. So some of the things for layout design guidelines that we always want to think is government requirements for fire code rules and local AJ requirements. My apologies. Sorry about that. So for each building, there does need to be a centerline axis. So usually in the north-south direction and the east-west direction, there does need to be a minimum of 8-foot walkway, depending on the size of the building. Most of the time, you can do the walkway as a 4-foot separation. You also have to leave walkways towards all skylights, ventilation hatches, and standpipes. Then there's need to be like a 4-foot access walkway to access that, and a 4-foot setback across the whole roof. Now, based on our loading calculations, it does need to be at least a minimum of 2-foot setback requirements from the edge of the roof. Anything closer than that, it would go outside of our wind tunnel loading calculations. So our system does need at least a minimum of 2 feet. For more favorable loading numbers, we need to be at least 3 feet, though most AHJs will recommend a minimum of 4-foot setback for most buildings. Now, typically, like the way the code outlines it is that it needs to be a 6-foot setback from the perimeter of the roof, but that is only for buildings that are 250 feet long or by length or width. Anything less than that, then we can use a 4-foot setback. So for when designing projects, like we have to consider the size of the building and what code requirements are needed to adjust for it. Now, part of the setback between arrays, interior pathways will be provided between the arrays to meet the following requirements. An 8-foot walkway in every direction is required to the next array every 150 feet. So that's considering that, like, if you have very large arrays, once they're longer than 150 feet, you do have to have a walkway to break that array to the next one. And then you need to have a 4-foot pathway to roof standpipe and ventilation hatch, a 4-foot pathway to any access hatches as well. Smoke ventilation and pathways to mechanical units. For non-gravity operated smoke and heat vents, there shall be a minimum of 4-foot setback bordering on all sides. For gravity operated dropout smoke and heat vent, there shall be a minimum of 4-foot pathway of fewer than one side. As far as engineering, items that you have to kind of consider that will affect the loading will be the building height, dimensions, and carpet height, array setbacks, the tilt angle, layout design in terms of the shape and size of the arrays, and the panel specification. And there's also the wind speed. You have to look it up from the local area. What is the wind speed based on risk categories? So in risk categories, there's 4 main types. One is a building that presents a low risk to human life in the event of failure. So these are very much like storage facilities that have nobody really working inside of them. All other buildings outside of 1, 2, and 3 are the most common, which is risk category 2. This would see manufacturing facilities, apartment buildings, malls. Most places would be considered category 2. Category 3 is a building that represents a substantial hazard to human life in the event of failure. This would be any places that have like large congregations, so theaters, schools, and other facilities. And there's category 4, buildings designed as essential facilities, such as hospitals, police stations, and other government facilities that need to work during the event of a disaster. And the lastly is the height above sea level. And this is specifically for ASC 7-16. Then there's the surface area roughness. So this is kind of considering like what is around the building that you're building on. So B is one of the more common ones for when you're building within a city. So urban and suburban areas, wooded areas, or other terrain with numerous closely spaced obstructions having the size of a single family dwelling or larger. C is open terrain, scattered obstructions having heights generally less than 30 feet. This category includes flat, open country grasslands. This could also be like if it's, say, like a shopping center with massive parking lots surrounding it, can be considered an exposure C category. Category D is a little bit more rare, but it is one of the more extreme cases. So flat, unobstructed areas, water surfaces. This category includes smooth mudflats, salt flats, and broken ice. The most likely that we would see this is like if a project is fairly close to the ocean or a lake or other flat open areas. For balance blocks, we typically recommend 2 different sizes. We typically, with our system, we find we can get the best ballast combinations using a 32-pound block and a 5-pound block. We can consider using just the 32-pound block, though in certain areas we sometimes find it more favorable to, like, if a system needs, say, 45 pounds, so instead of using 2 32-pound blocks on single support, it would be easier to place one 32-pound block and 5-pound blocks. So that way you're not going too far over the weight, so you're not placing unnecessary weight onto the roof itself. And then there is the standard providers, which Stepstone, Oldcastle, Rowstown, and the Home Depot ballast blocks as well. For grounding and bonding, KB Connect's UL 2703 certification allows the system to be grounded once per array. So because our clamps are rated for 2703, that allows the whole system to be. So the clamps themselves have little steel teeth that bite into the panel aluminum frame, causing a connection across the whole system. And we have a couple different options for mounting inverter kits, whether for some of them, you would need an L bracket with a non-bolt to attach it, or for other types, you can simply mount them directly to the mounting holes that we have on our system. All the KB racking supports have some additional mounting holes in the system itself, either for wire management or for mounting the brackets themselves. We do have wire management available. We sell them at 9.48 foot rails and 1.97 foot rail covers. Typically, we recommend 5 covers per rail. Now, this is an option. Each company has its own way of doing wire management, but this is an easy option that we can provide. It comes with pre-attached nuts and the full gear to put the system together. Seismic anchors for lots of areas are required. So if the project's in California, we do have to figure out whether there's enough seismic activity that you would need a few additional anchors. So we typically have worked with anchor products, but our system is fairly agnostic with multiple different anchors that can be used with the same type of kit to attach the system. Our system does come with the certifications and warranty. We did use RDWI for wind tunnel testing, Underwriter Laboratories for 2703 certification of grounding, for Class A fire rated. We've done mechanical pull-out tests, stiffness test, and friction tests. And that brings us to the end of the presentations, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you very much, Eugene. So we do have several questions. Anybody that want to ask questions, this is a good timing to use our Q&A for that. And if something will not be answered here, you can email us at info@renvu.com. The first question from Richard is about commercial installation in LA. Does the product or KB racking requires a slide test?
So I'm not quite sure what you mean by a slide test, but I believe that it covers the concept of friction coefficients. So that is one of the processes that we have to go through with LADBS, as they asked us to do a full peer review assessment of our recycled rubber mats that we use in the system. So we're able to use our friction coefficients for that system when putting it together. So if that was kind of like what you were talking about in terms of slide test, like we do have approval with LADBS to use our standard wind tunnel coefficients with the friction coefficients that we have for the specific roof types.
Sounds good. Craig is asking, do you support the design submission of smaller system in California? The basic requirement is either a general letter of acceptance signed by a California PE certifying the design, and then if you provide custom design documents for the small system, say between 10 to 50 kilowatt. I'll start answering and then I will let you continue. RENVU is helping with designs. We have permitting service that will go and design the KB racking on AutoCAD and provide the ballast required and all the considerations that Eugene asked before. Eugene, do you want to?
I believe that you kind of covered it mostly. Like it is done through RENVU. Like we do provide the format of the reports and the loading calculations. I'm not sure if there was anything very specific in terms of LA submittal, but we, as part of the process, the engineering stamp is provided by a local engineering firm to go over a design and provide it for permitting purposes.
Okay. Let's see. How does the system hold up in sea salt area?
So it is high-class aluminum, and it should withstand the area quite well. Though in the past, a lot of times we have recommended that like, if you're within like a certain distance to the ocean, that we would most likely recommend using a different type of aluminum. This gets to be a little bit more complex, so it would need a custom manufacturing run to use marine grade aluminum. But it is a fairly solid system using aluminum components, so it will last. But in saying that, we wouldn't recommend like directly near the ocean front where there would be a lot of salt spray.
Okay. And also asking if you can repeat the ballasted blocks resources. Maybe you can go back to that slide and have it open. That might answer that question. Thank you.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Is your engineering report is sufficient to obtain county permit? So I will take that as I mentioned, part of our permitting package that you can just purchase will include everything you need for a permit. So, okay. Let's see. Do you have front back module orientation with reverse tilt angles with no setback? Now that optimizers are cheaper, the kilowatt per space density can be increased. I don't know.
I'm a little bit confused. I have actually had one of my juniors come to me and ask in regards to reverse tilt. I'm a little bit confused at what that is asking about. Like, if it's an east-west system?
Yeah, I think this is the question, east-west.
Mm-hmm. We do have an option available, but not with the EkonoRack system. It would be a different system that we'd be able to doing, which is our EkonoRack with a rail option. That's like we usually do it for customer projects. It is available, but typically for a large scale, usually 100 kilowatts or up, we would be able to supply that.
Okay. Andre is clarifying that he's talking about north-south, which I'm not sure about the north orientation. But, okay. Yeah. One question here. I will read it while digesting. We have a pitch TPO membrane, approximately 1 inch with 12-inch slope. The ridge runs north-south. The dimensions east-west is approximately 22 feet each side of the ridge. I'm a little concerned about the 4-inch requirement for thermal expansion or contraction. This seems like a lot, and how will this affect the membrane below?
Okay, so if I understand correctly, a 1/12 slope is still less than a 5-degree slope, if I remember my math conversion skills for that. So anything under a 5-degree slope, you're able to use the ballasted system. Anything that's over 5-degree slope, so I think a 2/12 and it's being like around a 10-degree slope, and that would be too high and you won't be able to use the loaded calculations that is done by wind tunnel coefficients. It's too much, and then it would go a little bit over top. But 1/12 is fairly standard. It's about 4-degree slope, so that should be fine. The ridge, I'm not sure how appropriate with actually seeing the roof type. We really would need to kind of do a layout design and see what you're trying to achieve and see if there's any obstructions that are getting in the way of the system itself. The 4-inch requirement for thermal break, it really is like depending on the size of the system. So like 4 inches separating a system that's 15 panels east-west is still fairly minimal, and it's not the size of a full walkway. So it shouldn't really be that much. You just need to break up the panels so like to avoid any like damage to the system from thermal expansion and contraction. And once the system gets too big, it's just to break up the arrays. So it's a minimal, but it's actually that kind of integrated with pretty much the majority of the systems out there. They're metal based, and I think even for some of the other ones, like they all have like a thermal expansion kind of built into them. So it's a standard process that's kind of across all systems. We just kind of outline what's the requirements for ours, whether it's 25 panels in the north-south direction or 15 panels in the east-west direction. You kind of need to create a break just for the thermal expansion. But once you go over 150 feet in an east-west direction, then you come up against fire code regulations that you would need to build a full walkway into it. I hope that answers the questions. If you want to come back to me and go a little bit further in detail, I'd be more than happy to kind of outline anything.
Okay, sounds good. So it looks like this concludes the Q&A that I see here. If anybody have follow-up questions or requests to RENVU or to Eugene or KB Racking team, email us at info@renvu.com or call us, and we'll be happy to help. This webinar was recorded and will be available for all of you. We will email it to you once we edit it, and we have several opportunities for you as a campaign follow-up for this webinar that you will get into your email. And thank you very much, Eugene and KB Racking team. It was fascinating, and we have experience with the KB Racking as well as other ballast system, and I can say that this is a very simple design and minimal part numbers, really easy to install and design. So thanks a lot again, and see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.